Alright, so we're back out in the shop today, and it's cold out. It's like literally 15 degrees outside. This is why motorcycles are winter projects, because you can't ride them in the winter. Look outside right now. Look at this. It's snow. Yeah, so last time we were working on taking this engine apart. We got all the way down to splitting the case, and now we still need to split the case. So that is our goal today, split this case. I couldn't find anything on the internet about how to do it, how to split a Goldwing case. The only thing it says in the service manual is split the case. Step 20, split the case. So I've had to come up with my own idea on how to do this. I was able to find a mention on another YouTube video of somebody who said they had split it, but then didn't explain how. But they did mention that there was a heat gun involved. So we've got a heat gun. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Welcome to the Hoopty Doodle. Here on Hoopty Doodle, we try our best to take old machines and keep them on the road. We like stuff that has a history to it, has some sort of story already, and then we just keep that story going. And maybe we change the story a little bit too along the way. We customize stuff. We like customizing things too, you know, and so that's what we're doing here on this bike. We're customizing it into a bobber because we want to. And I didn't originally plan on rebuilding the engine, but hey, I'm game. So let's get to work here. Alright, so here's our beautiful engine. We've got it tipped over on its side. That is the right side it's tipped over onto. We have pulled off all the engine bolts on the right side. We pulled all the engine bolts off on the left side, and we've gone through and double checked. Looked for any bolts we might have missed. This guy here doesn't want to come out all the way. It really only needs to just not be in the other half of the case, and we're good. Put my gloves on here. Happy glove. This is my happy glove on here. So that's where we're at on this. The plan here is we've got spin it around, spin it around this way. The plan here, right here, the plan. You can see there's sort of like a bell housing type of situation going on here, and the case splits right along here. This is a crankshaft down, or no, this is the that's like the transmission down there. This is the crank up here. My father conveniently had these. These are something he made to split another case on a different engine at some point, and he made them himself. He's got some iron plates on the ends here, and he's got some screws, and in the middle he's got a little threaded pipe here. I'm not sure where he got this thing from. It's clearly off of something else. And one of them is a right-hand thread, and one of them is a left-hand thread. Basically the idea is we get this guy in here, it'll put pressure on both of those sides. That'll be hopefully enough to help encourage the case to come apart. Because my plan is to put this guy in here, put a little bit of pressure on the sides. I'm gonna cover this up with some rags to give it some cushion here. I don't want to damage the case at all. I'm just gonna put a little bit of pressure on the sides, not a lot. Then I'm gonna go around with my heat gun, and I'm gonna try and heat up these seams and everything where the glue or gas, whatever was used to seal these cases together. I'm going to heat that material up, and hopefully just this little bit of pressure here will be enough to encourage it and split it apart once the seam material is heated up and the gasket lets go. So that's the plan. Let's do it. Alright, so this heat gun here conveniently goes up to 1100 degrees. So it's a cheap heat gun, and so it only has two settings, 750 degrees or 1100 degrees. Aluminum melts at about 1221 degrees. And so I definitely want to stay under that temperature. The fact that this goes up to 1100 reassures me. And it does get hot, man. And I came out here earlier, about 2 hours earlier, and I turned the heat on so that the case is warmed up a bit from, it's not 15 degrees out here. It should be, the case should be about 50 degrees or so. And then I'm going to heat it up further with this heat gun. Alright, so I've very carefully been at this thing, heating it up for past hour at least. And I've finally got the slightest crack where it's starting to split just a little bit. Alright, making some progress where it's slowly widening as I get up. It's gapped up to here and just barely gapped into here. I'm trying to encourage it. It's a little bit bigger there. It's starting to come across here. This is a tough one. We're getting somewhere. We're finally starting to get somewhere. Yes. Stand of joy. Yay. Two things of note in terms of splitting the case now that we have the case apart are this guy here. There's a little dowel, tab, pin, whatever you want to call it, right there. This is in the bottom. What is this? The bottom front side of the engine. See, there's the crank pulley over there. There's another one on the opposite corner over here on the back top of the engine. So those are two things in terms of splitting the case to pay attention to. You want to heat this area up down here quite a bit. Pay attention to that when you're warming it up. This is where that engine mount, that rod for the engine mount in the front goes through. That goes through this tunnel here. We already put a ton of penetrating oil down through in there. There's not much more we could have done, I don't think. And then the top here, we did throw some penetrating oil on that. Maybe that helped us out up there, I don't know. So that's the one half. The other half of the engine case, we've got another little dowel pin here. So here are our pistons. Pistons came out, no problem. No problem, they slid right out. I believe the other ones will slide right out. The crank still doesn't move. These crank main bearings, that's where we suspect the problem is. And that is where we still suspect the problem is. So, and there's your top dead center, your timing mark thing right there. Look at that. That's interesting. Probably the best look you'll ever have at it. And then these guys are marked. Look at this. So, our main bearing covers there. There's a 3 on top of that one, and there's a 1 over here on top of this guy. I don't see any markings on the second one. And then we got this cool chain here that goes from the crank at the very top to the transmission stuff all on the bottom here. And the transmission, you'll note, this guy turns just fine. No problems there.
You gonna take one of them off?
Should we? We can if you want. breaker bar. Alright, there's those two guys.
Whack with a hammer.
Well, that looks good to me.
The bearing doesn't look bad at all.
Maybe it wasn't that one. I mean, the rod bearings are, these things move around no problem. Okay, so that doesn't look bad. This guy.
Do they have those numbered? Bearing 1, 2,
This is
3?
1.
Okay.
2's not numbered, but 3 is numbered. We need to keep these in order, right? So we know exactly who went and where.
Yeah.
Alright, crank bearing number 3. Some wear and stuff in there, but it's not welded to the crank. I
Right.
mean, that's a good thing. So, at the very worst, we can just replace the bearing and then.
Yeah, that's what it looks like so far. What are you going to do if you take the other one off? That looks good too, and it still don't turn over.
Well, it's got to be stuck somewhere. Number 2 is the 17 millimeter.
More moment of truth. What the heck?
Alright, well, there's another one that doesn't look that bad. There's some wear marks and stuff.
Doesn't it? How, there's no grooves on that or anything, is there? Or, it's gotta be the piston.
Still doesn't want to turn.
It's gotta be one of them pistons down there. Unless we got a bearing that's locked right up tighter than tight. We just took the caps off of those other two.
Oh, the
Off of that one
other
and off of
pistons?
that one. Well, the pistons. And then we should be able to
Okay.
rock the crank. Or something.
Something should move, right?
And if nothing does move, I'm going to go back in the house.
So we're taking, this is called the cap, for the rod cap?
Rod cap.
Rod cap off.
Sounds good.
This is a 12 millimeter. There's that guy.
Doesn't look bad neither. Because you had stuff in the oil there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they spun. Now that looks like brass, right?
I mean, it looks burnt or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can see like copper, a layer of copper or whatever coming through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is.
That's spun on the crank. You can't turn the crank yet, right? Or
Yeah.
no, it's still tighter than tight. Wasn't going very fast. So usually it turns the crank blue or puts gouges in the crank.
Oh, like a heat
Yeah.
blue. All right, so now we're on to piston number 1. Taking the rod cap off piston number 1. 2. How do we get it off now? So I got a nice little brass rod to have it with. It doesn't seem to move at all. That's our
Good.
problem.
There we go.
We found the problem. It's interesting because that one, I don't know, it looks darker to me. Alright, so then piston number 1, the cap here on the rod for piston number 1, that's a nice dark color, and you compare that to the other ones like this guy, you can still, it's a nice lighter color on that one. And then this guy's already off, and this guy is still a lighter color there. So we think we found our problem, which is piston number 1, the rod cap, that won't even come off. So that's probably where it's seized up there. So how do we get it off then? Something?
Well, if you put the nuts back on them, just start them on,
yeah,
so that they don't go all the way down.
So there's a gap in there.
Yeah, and then whack it with a punch both sides, and then drive the piston down that way.
All right, so we threaded the nuts back on the rod bolts for piston number 1 there, and we're leaving about a 2 millimeter or so gap between the nut and the cap, and then we're going to hammer that nut down a little bit and see if that will push the piston and the rod down and make something move in there. Oh, that moved. That one moved too. All right, so we got this brass rod because it's a softer metal and it doesn't hurt anything in here basically, right? So if we take the nuts back off, let's see if we can get the cap off.
Yep.
Okay. Cap doesn't want to move.
You can use this brass rod. I think that piston moves easy.
Yeah.
Right on the threads on the top part. Drive that down a little bit.
Just like that.
Yeah, I'm going to drive the piston right off.
Yeah. Oh, that one's out. Oh, there we go.
The crank moved.
No. Oh, it did move! Look at that. Alright, so that's that guy.
That's not the...
That's the rod cap.
Yeah, where's the
bearing? It's down there on top of the other bearing. Can't quite get a hold of the guy. Aha! Alright, got it. It's not supposed to be all mushroomed out like that, right?
That's both bushings there, right?
Yeah, there's 2 of them. Alright, so this is our problem. We found it. So the rod bearing on piston number 1. So you can see these are both bearings. And this is how it came out. And these do not come apart. They are smashed together, welded together, whatever it is. And you can see like the one is sort of mushroomed out on the end there. That's how they came out. So that was our problem. Alright, so today was a good day in that we finally figured out what the problem was with the engine and why it wouldn't turn over. It was a failure, a critical failure of the number 1 piston rod bearings. They were just sandwiched together. And so we know what we need to fix now. The bad news is that the crank could need to be replaced. So good and bad news today. The cranks, fortunately on eBay, you can get a used crank, and hopefully it's a good crank for around a little over $100, which is not a bad price for a crank. Alright, so next time we'll take the crank out of the case, measure everything, and see how bad it really is. And then we'll go from there. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you guys' support. I really appreciate everyone watching and coming on this journey with me. I'm having a good time. I hope you are too. If you are, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. See you next time.